Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day today so far. Hope you had a good weekend. Um, Boy, is it getting hot. I'm not one that's a fan of, I don't like really cold weather. I don't like super hot weather. I'm like, 70 degrees all year round would be great, but obviously can't have that happen. But it was really bad at work yesterday, and not to mention, I had a customer come in and we couldn't find a shirt. And usually, when that happens, our policy, which is posted on the wall outside, we're allowed 14 days to locate that item. And usually, what it is it ends up coming out in the dry cleaning or the wash, depending on what's being done to it, the very next day, which would be Monday because we're closed on Sundays. But I allowed her to go back there with me while I ran the rack. We were looking at like all the black shirts that were in any order to see if it was hers, and it just got misassembled, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Not in the buckets, not in any of the machines. It's just like it disappeared. And it was apparently the shirt that her son was going to wear to prom last night. Um, but my question is when you have an event, and people seem to do this all the time. They have an event, or they're going out of town, and they drop it off the afternoon before they have to have it. And I don't understand why you wait till the last minute, because anything can happen. So she's like, well, I can't afford to go get another shirt, and hinting at the idea that she wants me to pay her for the shirt, and which I can't do that. I didn't think she was ever going to leave, and uh, I didn't think she was ever going to leave. She finally did. But I'm sure I'll find it on Monday. Obviously, it'll be too late, but it's something that's out of my control, and there's only so much that I can do. And sometimes it's like people think that we work miracles or something. I don't know. Not to mention, the day before that, or Thursday, I think it was, I don't remember. I think it was Thursday that some lady's coat got shrunk. And sometimes things happen, and of course, we take care of those things when something on our end is our fault. But this lady, I didn't know. I give it to her. I didn't know that she didn't know that it was even there. And so maybe I could have not given it to her, and we could have tried to stretch it again. But I gave it to her, and she was so upset, but she was like hysterical, crying over this coat. And so I called my boss, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, she is literally crying, and she was crying as if she just found out someone passed away. This is how hard she was crying. And he told me to let her know that we would, get her another coat. And as soon as I told her that, she stopped crying and totally normal after that. Anyway, but she found a coat and she bought it. So that was all taken care of. Just sometimes people are crazy. I don't know. Just seems a little ridiculous over a coat. I mean, I can understand being upset, but not that upset. Anyway, that's how my week is gone. So I have a lot of stuff that I want to talk about. That's couple things that I haven't heard anybody talk about. I just happened to come across these two things. But let's read the daily promise verse. It says, incline your ear and come unto me, hear, and your soul shall live, and I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David. Isaiah 55:3. Everlasting is the covenant between God and his people. Evermore shall Christ rule upon the throne of David. His victory is won, his race is finished. Nevermore shall God's people look at the doom of history, wondering Where is this looked for salvation? He has come, he has won, and we, his people, have seen him. Okay, so first let's talk about this story. My dad told me about this. In Buffalo, New York, there's a mass shooting at Tops grocery store and killed 10 people and wounded 3 people on Saturday. He allegedly targeted the establishment because of racial hatred and extremist ideology. He was arrested and pleaded not guilty Saturday afternoon. The shooter, who will not be named per Daily Wire policy, allegedly live-streamed the horrendous tragedy on Twitch and drove hours to the facility. Authorities claim the shooter chose the Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo because of the racial demographics of the community in which it is located. This was pure evil, Erie County Sheriff John Garcia said Saturday during a press conference. Straight up racially motivated hate crime from somebody outside of our community, outside of the city of good neighbors, as the mayor said, coming into our community and trying to inflict evil upon us. According to Stephen, is it Belangia or I don't know. Belangia. Sure. Special agent in charge of the FBI's Buffalo field office. The tragedy is being investigated as, quote, as both a hate crime and a case of racially motivated violent extremism. President Biden issued a comment about the shooting through White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. Yeah, great. Now we have another new press secretary, and boy, I think she might be worse than Jen Psaki. Says the president and the first lady are praying for those who have been lost and for their loved ones. Sure they are. Biden will be updated on the incident throughout the evening. Saturday evening, Democratic New York Governor Kathy Hochul tweeted, "We must confront the threat that white supremacism poses to our society head on. I have directed the New York Police Hate Crimes Task Force to assist in the investigation of the heinous shooting in Buffalo today. 4 store employees, including a security guard, were among the victims. 11 of the shooting victims are black, 2 are white. The suspect allegedly posted a 106-page manifesto online where he described himself as a white supremacist and anti-Semite prior to live streaming the attack on Twitch. According to those who have viewed the manifesto, the shooter also allegedly promotes green nationalism in addition to white supremacy and neo-Nazism. He also allegedly attacks Fox News in the document. Twitch deleted the suspected shooter's live stream on the attack and banned him from the website. We are devastated to hear about the shooting that took place this afternoon in Buffalo, New York," the streaming service company said in a statement. "Our hearts go out to the community impacted by this tragedy. Twitch has a zero-tolerance policy against violence of any kind and works swiftly to respond to all incidents. The user has been indefinitely suspended from our service, and we are taking all appropriate action, including monitoring for any accounts rebroadcasting this content." On Saturday, Buffalo reporter Kelsey Granderson tweeted, "He is charged with murder in the first degree, and his lawyer says he is pleading not guilty. Forensic exam requested by lawyer. The suspect will appear in court next Thursday." 18-year-old white gunman Peyton Gendron of Conklin. I'll tell you, it would seem that these Democrat-run cities and states like that, you know how when it's a black suspect, they don't like to talk about it. They don't like to say who it is. They like to keep pictures from the press because it doesn't fit their narrative of white supremacy. But immediately when it's somebody white that's committing the crime, they're talking about it and they're taking it super seriously. Because this will be talked about for a very long time in the news cycles because he's white. But do you notice they've already forgotten about the black man who shot up a bunch of people on the train in New York? A bunch of white people and Asian people. They don't talk about that anymore. In fact, they pretty much stopped talking about it the same day that they found out about it. And that's the way it is. But I guarantee you this will go on for weeks just because he's white. And I'm not saying anything in defense of anybody committing crimes, but the fact that they always play the race card when it comes to committing crimes. They don't like to talk about black suspects or probably even Hispanic suspects, minorities in general. They only want to talk about the white people. And, race doesn't matter. It does not matter. A crime is a crime. Evil is evil. And it comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors. So it's really irritating. Okay, so the baby formula shortage that people are worried about. And sure, it's stressful not to be able to get things that you need. But I said this the other day on Twitter, and I don't think anybody got upset. I don't remember getting any comments about somebody being mad that I suggested it. But I understand that there are women out there who can't breastfeed. They don't produce milk. Some babies just don't do it. Besides the fact that you can pump if you just can't because your baby refuses to, but then you can always pump and use a bottle. A lot of women do that. But what do people think that they did before formula was ever invented? Formula hasn't been around forever. So you had to feed babies some way. And yes, they had wet nurses, but that doesn't mean that was the case in every situation. And I was reading, somebody posted on Facebook now they say don't make formula at home, that, it's not safe. But there was a lady that was sharing a recipe that her mother's doctor had given her to make her own formula at home. So it comes from a doctor, and you can research it, I'm sure. But also that goat's milk is something that's pretty, it's pretty similar to breast milk. And that's really good for babies if you can't do formula. So, and that's what I was saying, I was told my brother was on whole milk when he was 2 weeks old. He was a fatty. And you can do that. You can do goat's milk. You can do whole milk. If you have to water it down a bit because it's too thick for the baby because they're too small, you have to be careful about how you do it. But you will be able to feed your child. If you don't get formula, there will be a way to feed them. Milk is the way to go. Anyway, so I don't know why everybody's so freaked out about that. Babies are not going to starve. They're not. But there was John Legend. He was slammed because there are some Americans that are angry that illegal immigrants are getting baby formula before American citizens. And you should be angry because they should not be getting that formula. They are not legal, and they're crossing over here and they're committing a crime, but we are taking care of them before we take care of our own. Not to mention the pallets of baby formula that's also being sent to Ukraine. And we need to stop sending our money and all of our stuff to Ukraine and just butt out. But of course, we know that's not going to happen. So, it says here that John Legend was slammed after he mocked a Republican congressman for saying that Americans should be prioritized over illegal immigrants during the baby formula shortage plaguing the nation. Texas Representative Troy Nehls took note of a report stating that Biden administration had reportedly shipped pallets of baby formula to migrant holding facilities. He commented, "Baby formula should go to Americans before illegals. This should not have to be said." And then Legend taunted, "These are the pro-life folks." Yeah, we're pro-life. We don't think that any child should starve, but we also know that, you have to take care of, it's kind of like you have to have your home in order first before you can offer help out to anybody else. Well, this is the same thing, but on obviously a bigger scale. Our country, we have to make sure that we're all taken care of, and you can't be. That's the point of a nation. You take care of your people. That's why we have them. That's why you don't see other countries sending out billions of dollars to Ukraine or allowing illegals just to cross their borders and take over, because they care about their people first. But America, I guess, is very unique in the fact that we just let people flood our borders and we don't care, and we put outsiders before the citizens who are paying the taxes and who are making this economy boom. Well, not right now, but that's Biden's fault. But when it is a good economy and things are going good, that's because of the citizens. That is not because of the illegals crossing over the border. Legend's mockery triggered harsh criticism on social media. Radio host Joe Pagliarulo, whatever. Yes, John, baby formula in America should go to American families before the families of those breaking the law to come here. Why is this so controversial? When's the last time you said something in support of our country? Attorney author Kurt Schleicher, yes, I prefer Americans to foreigners. You have accurately assessed my preference. Florida GOP Representative Kat Kamak stated on Facebook that she didn't blame the immigrant children for having the formula, but said the Biden administration was again implementing its America Last agenda. It's not the children's fault at all, but what is infuriating to me is that this is another example of the America Last agenda that the Biden admin continues to perpetuate. I don't think anybody was saying it's the children's fault. Of course it's not. No, it is the administration's fault. You don't have to state that it's not the kid's fault. Nobody thinks that. I don't know about you, but if I'm a mother anywhere, anytime in America, and I go to my local Walmart or Target or Publix or Safeway or Kroger or wherever it may be that you shop, and you are seeing bare shelves and you are seeing signs that you're not able to get baby formula, and then you see the American government sending by the pallet thousands and thousands of containers of baby formula to the border, that would make my blood boil. Yeah, we were at Walmart the other day, and I went to look at the baby formula shelf at Walmart, and I wanted to see how bare it was, and it was very bare. And they had notes posted up that they were limiting 5 cans of formula per customer per day. So, I mean, you can go back the next day and buy 5 more. But it's also really expensive lately. I remember when you could get a can of formula for like $12, and now it's over $20 for a can of formula. And some people may say, well, that's not a whole lot to feed a baby. It is when a can doesn't last hardly any time, because, you're feeding on like a 4-hour schedule. That can won't last you a few weeks. So it is very expensive, being over $20 a can. In 2018, Legend altered the lyrics of the perennial Christmas favorite, I don't know why we're even bringing this up, Baby It's Cold Outside, in the version he recorded with singer Kelly Clarkson, seemingly championing abortion as he added, "It's your body and your choice." The complete set of Legend's new lyrics came amid criticism that the original song resembled a quote-unquote date rape, which it doesn't. The new lyrics provoked Susan Loser, the daughter of famed composer-lyricist Frank Loser, who composed the song, to comment, "Way before #MeToo, I would hear from time to time people call it a date rape song. I would get annoyed because it's a song my father wrote for him and my mother to sing at parties. People used to say, 'What's in this drink?' as a joke, This drink is going straight to my head, so what's in this drink? Back then, it didn't mean you drugged me." Yeah. John Legend is weird. I mean, he's with Chrissy Teigen, who joked about being attracted to children. And I'm not so sure she was joking, so he's a weirdo. But what I wanted to look at here is Steven Crowder covered the baby formula shortage on his show. And it says that 43% of popular brands of formula are out of stock. In 6 states, more than half of all baby formula was sold out during the last week of April. One man at Target said he was forced to purchase formula from Europe because he couldn't find it anywhere in the States. This is technically illegal, but parents have been doing this for years. It's supposedly not even enforced, even though it's technically illegal. Manufacturers are having trouble procuring necessary ingredients because of supply chain issues. Packaging and labor shortages are also contributing to the problem. Another important factor exacerbating the shortage is a recall by Abbott Laboratories, an industry leader. In February of this year, Abbott voluntarily recalled a host of its products, including certain Similac formulas. The recall was issued after the company received multiple consumer complaints related to Chronobacter sakazaki. I don't know. 5 infants were hospitalized after consuming formula from their Sturgis, Michigan facility. However, according to Abbott, no product ever tested positive for the bacteria, but records show Abbott had previously destroyed product because of the presence of the bacteria. This recall is a huge problem because the formula industry is dominated by a handful of companies. And I think that they said a couple babies also died. So in 2021, parents wanting to make individual choices on baby formula were blocked by the FDA. Tariffs are currently at 17.5% for infant formula. Biden wants to erase tariffs on other Chinese goods, though. The FDA failed to enforce regulations already on the books, is what he talks about. Like, they're very strict about certain things, like something being, the label being just the right size font or things like that. But the real stuff that the FDA should be focused on, they don't care about. So, Abbott was inspected in September 2021 with the following findings: unsanitary conditions in the building itself, failure to wash hands, and failure to test for microbes in the final product. But they were never shut down. Nothing was ever done, and they were still allowed to continue making the baby formula. And I think he said there's 4 or 5 companies that make baby formula, and that is it. And nobody else can get into the market for it because of the strict regulations. However, something that I saw, I think, other than sending the baby formula to illegals or to Ukraine or, the supply chain issues, whatever it is, I think the biggest reason that we are seeing this shortage is because of what I found the other day. Bill Gates' backed company produces lab-grown human milk that may be 3 years away. Now, I don't know if the 3 years is quite accurate. I don't know if they're artificially making this shortage so that when this does come out that people are gonna, flock to it to feed their children. I would never give this to my kids. Never. But BIOMILQ, with a Q, not a K. BIOMILQ, a North Carolina-based startup, aims to create human milk-producing cells in much the same way that some companies are producing lab-grown meat, which I wouldn't eat that either. So Stacey Ray tweeted out, U.S. firm BIOMILQ is artificially producing human breast milk, claims it's, quote, better for the environment. Bill Gates, alongside other investors, helped BIOMILQ raise $21 million in October of 2021. The idea first came to co-founder and chief science officer Layla Strickland in 2013 after she heard about the world's first lab-grown burger. A cell biologist by training, Strickland wondered if similar technology could be used to culture human milk-producing cells, she tells CNN Business. Strickland had struggled to produce enough breast milk for her first child. A lot of women are grappling with this, she says. Globally, only 1 in 3 babies receives as much breast milk in their first 6 months as experts recommend, says The Who, which I don't trust them either. Instead, many parents rely on formula. The milk formula industry was worth over $52 billion in 2021, according to market research provider Euromonitor International. Often based on powdered cow's milk, formula is able to satisfy a lot of the nutritional requirements, Strickland says, but it cannot replicate the complexity of human milk. Strickland says BIOMILQ's product, by comparison, better matches the nutritional profile of breast milk than formula, with more similar proportions of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. The BIOMILQ team creates its product from cells taken from human breast tissue and milk donated by women in the local community who get a Target gift card in return. BIOMILQ grows the cells in flasks, feeding them nutrients, and then incubates them in a bioreactor that mimics the environment in a breast. Here, the cells absorb more nutrients and secrete milk components. Is this artificial milk the globalist solution for baby formula shortages? Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos are among the investors in BIOMILQ. Just hearing the names of who the investors are absolutely deters me from ever trusting using this, ever. Anytime Bill Gates is backing something, be sure someone will be severely injured or killed because of using it. As Alarabia News explains, the Bill Gates-backed company may get their product on the market in 3 to 5 years. Strickland, okay, so we already read that. The North Carolina-based startup received a $3.5 million investment from Breakthrough Energy Ventures, a fund started by Bill Gates, the Times reported in June 2020. BIOMILQ's team is working on producing artificial human milk, blah, 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 blah. Strickland said that the company is still between 3 and 5 years away from taking a product to market. First, the company needs to grow cells at a larger scale and lower cost than they are currently doing. BIOMILQ also needs to gain regulatory approval, showing that the product is safe for infants. Additionally, BIOMILQ aims to provide a greener alternative for formula milk, as an estimated 10% of the global dairy industry, which is a significant source of greenhouse gases, is used in manufacturing baby formula. The firm claims to have developed a milk form that is easier for babies to digest than formula. Most importantly, it emits a smaller carbon footprint, which will help the environment. It is unclear when BIOMILQ's artificial breast milk might become commercially available, but representatives from the firm say it would likely depend on the approval of regulatory bodies such as the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. And no doubt, I would guess that this would be able to start being used like emergency use, like the Fauci ouchies were released for emergency use, so they cut a lot of the red tape for it to get out there, even though we know that Moderna had been created, in like, I think it was 2019 already. So, it's just something to think about, that maybe this is all artificial shortages in order to promote this and put this into your children. And I wouldn't do it, because we know the left does not care about the sanctity of life. They don't care about children. They'll kill them. They don't care. Maybe this is a form of population control for babies, because you can't give them Fauci ouchies, right? Maybe so. I wouldn't do it. Okay. Here we go. I'm not going to read this whole thing, I don't think. From Joseph Gunderson, a school filed sexual harassment complaint against 3 middle schoolers. Their crime? Using wrong pronouns. So now, using the wrong pronoun is considered sexual harassment. Wow. Okay. So in another case of the left attempting to force speech, a Wisconsin middle school has filed Title IX complaints against 3 of its students. The 3 Kiel middle school students are alleged to have used the incorrect pronouns when addressing a female student who preferred to be addressed as they, them. One of the boys' mothers, Rosemary Rabideau, explained that when she first received notification of the complaint, she couldn't believe it. Title IX violations are a serious matter. No kidding. In a sane world, this wouldn't occur, but this isn't a sane world. We live in a time and place where the left has hold of the levers of power, and this is only another example of them wielding it. Title IX, as the Daily Mail explains, doesn't cover the use of preferred pronouns, nor should it. The government cannot compel anyone's speech, a point Rabideau's son made when defending his friend. Presently, the Department of Education is attempting to change Title IX to include preferred pronouns, so there's no doubt the education system will attempt to fry these young boys for doing nothing wrong. Canada already went through this fight, and it didn't actually end well for them. Let's hope we can keep the government from forcing our speech. Yeah, because now it's a crime in Canada to use the wrong pronoun for somebody. That's how Jordan Peterson rose to fame, was fighting that in Canada. The education system and the LGBTQ plus lobby seem to be working hand in glove to force their ideological, what is that word? Inanities on the American people and more specifically students. Calling a girl by the wrong pronouns warrants a Title IX complaint at this Wisconsin middle school, but last month a teacher's drag performance didn't matter until parents began to complain. The disproportionate treatment of just these two events makes the point clear. Bend the knee to the transgender and, more broadly, the LGBTQ lobby, or face the wrath of the government. The government, after all, believes in the sexualization and butchering of young children. Yup. Really quickly, because I don't know how long I've been recording, but I will tell you this. Our tax dollars are wisely being spent to gift house staffers with free, is it Peloton? Is that how you say it? Memberships. Just so you know. Everything is going swimmingly in the U.S. There's certainly nothing requiring the government's immediate attention and investment. Inflation isn't making it difficult to provide for one's family, and babies aren't at risk of not having the formula they need to survive and develop properly, or perhaps the government is simply ignoring these issues. They must be ignoring those issues because instead of dealing with these pressing issues, the government has chosen to use your tax dollars to provide free Peloton memberships to house staffers. According to an email obtained by Fox Business, the Premier Employee Benefit, which will also be made available to all Capitol Police, will provide staffers with both Peloton All Access and a Peloton app membership at no monthly cost. Of course, there's a monthly cost. It will just be paid for by the American taxpayer. Let's do a little bit of math. There are approximately 9,034 house staffers and 2,300 officers and civilian employees of the Capitol Police. Peloton app membership costs $12.99 per month, and the All Access membership costs $39 per month. For the government, they only need to pay $10,000 up front and $10 per month per employee. That's well over $1 million per year. The government will $1 million providing Peloton memberships to employees while it sits by and watches inflation run rampant, gas prices soar, and babies suffer without formula. $1 million could buy a lot of formula, even if it's becoming extremely expensive. But your money, and make no mistake, it is your money, is going toward paying for workout memberships that, let's be honest, the employees will sign up for them and never use them. It would seem our government has its priorities mixed up, or the American people just aren't their priority. Remember that come November, or get used to this kind of frivolity at your expense. I just thought that maybe y'all should be aware of that. That's so crazy. That is ridiculous. Okay, I think we covered everything. So the last thing, because this is really important, and I think people really need to pay attention to this. And this is also something I haven't heard anybody talking about. And you would think the minute that this was mentioned, that conservative media would have been on top of it, because I think it's very serious and it's very important. So this is from worldfreedomalliance.org. I don't know anything about their website, but this is where I could find this information. The WHO Pandemic Treaty, what it is, why it matters, and how to stop it. So this was published on May 12th, 2022. The World Health Organization is drafting a global pandemic treaty on pandemic preparedness that would grant the agency absolute and unprecedented power over global biosecurity. The last days to comment on the draft are June 16th and June 17th. So the World Health Organization has started drafting a global pandemic treaty on pandemic preparedness. Okay, so I just read that. Such as the power to implement digital identity/vaccine passports, mandatory vaccinations, travel restrictions, standardized medical care, and more. The WHO is not qualified to make global health decisions. As just one example, the WHO didn't publicly admit SARS-CoV-2 was airborne until the end of December 2021, yet scientists knew the virus was airborne within weeks of the pandemic being declared. The WHO also ignored early advice about airborne transmission. More importantly, well, you know why? Because the WHO is controlled by the CCP, the Chinese government. More importantly, a one-size-fits-all approach to pandemic response simply does not work, because pandemic threats are not identical in all parts of the world. Even people in the same region do not have identical risk and may not need or benefit from identical treatment. The WHO will accept 2 more days of public comment on the treaty, June 16th. And June 17th. So prepare your statements now. The World Health Assembly will also vote on amendments to the International Health Regulations May 22nd through the 28th, which may also strip away more individual rights and liberties. And did I read this date right? Yeah, okay. The globalists that brought us the widely exaggerated pandemic in an effort to cement a biosecurity grid into place are now hard at work on the next phase of this new world order. The WHO has started drafting a global pandemic. So, a backdoor... Oh, okay, so there's a... I can't click the link because there's no link to click, but in the Corbett report above, independent journalist James Corbett reviews what this treaty is, how it will change the global landscape and strip you of some of your most basic rights and freedoms. Make no mistake, the WHO Pandemic Treaty is a direct attack on the sovereignty of its member states, as well as a direct attack on your bodily autonomy. As noted by anti-extremism activist Majid Nawaz in an April 28th Twitter post, the WHO Pandemic Treaty serves as a backdoor to global empire. So the pandemic, while potentially deadly to certain vulnerable groups, simply isn't a valid justification for handing over more power to the WHO, especially in light of its many inexplicable mistakes in this and previous pandemics. So it seems clear that the effort to now hand over more power to the WHO is about something other than them being the most qualified to make health decisions that benefit and protect everyone. It seems far more likely that the WHO is being installed as a de facto governing body for the global deep state. Through the WHO, under the guise of biosecurity, the globalist cabal who seek to own everything and control everyone will then be able to implement their wishes across the whole world in one fell swoop. With this treaty in place, all member nations will be subject to the WHO's dictates. If the WHO says every person on the planet needs to have a vaccine passport and digital identity to ensure vaccination compliance, then that's what every country will be forced to implement, even if the people have rejected such plans using local democratic processes. As noted by Corbett, these negotiations are already well underway, and the treaty is expected to be fully implemented in 2024. That is, unless the people of the world wake up to what's happening and beat back this monstrosity. Under the guise of a global pandemic, the WHO, the World Economic Forum, of course you know they're involved, and all its installed leaders in government and private business were able to roll out a plan that had already been decades in the making. The pandemic was a perfect cover. In the name of keeping everyone safe from infection, the globalists justified unprecedented attacks on democracy, civil liberties, and personal freedoms, including the right to choose your own medical treatment. Now the WHO is gearing up to make its pandemic leadership permanent, extend it into the healthcare systems of every nation, and eventually implement a universal or socialist-like healthcare system as part of the Great Reset. While this is not currently being discussed, there's every reason to suspect that this is part of the plan. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has previously stated that his central priority as Director General of the WHO is to push the world toward universal health coverage. And considering the WHO changed its definition of pandemic to a worldwide epidemic of a disease without the original specificity of severe illness that causes high morbidity, just about anything can be made to fit the pandemic criterion. The whole premise behind this pandemic treaty is that shared threat requires shared response, but a given threat is almost never equally shared across regions. So, take COVID. Not only is the risk of COVID not the same for people in New York City and the outback of Australia, it's not even the same for all of the people in those areas, as it is highly dependent on age and underlying health conditions. The WHO insists that the remedy is the same for everyone everywhere, yet the risks vary widely from nation to nation, region to region, person to person. They intend to eliminate individualized medicine and provide blanket rulings for how a given threat is to be addressed. Without a doubt, this can only result in needless suffering, not to mention the loss of individual freedoms. To give us an idea of how the WHO might end up misusing this new proposed international instrument on pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response, we can look at the International Health Regulations, or the IHR, which the U.S. signed on to in 2005. The IHR is what empowered the WHO to declare a public health emergency of international concern, the PHEIC. This is a special legal category that allows the WHO to initiate certain contracts and procedures, including drug and vaccine contracts. As noted by Corbett, the IHR allows the unelected Director General of the WHO to simply declare a PHEIC, and suddenly all member states have to dance to his tune. It basically grants the WHO dictatorial powers over health policy. PHEICs have included the phony H1N1 swine flu pandemic in 2009, the inconsequential Zika outbreak in 2016, the overhyped Ebola outbreak in 2019, and of course the massively exaggerated pandemic in 2020. All of these PHEICs were poorly handled, and the WHO was criticized as inept and corrupt in their wake. So, to summarize, through the IHR, the WHO has already been significantly empowered to dictate global health policy with regard to pandemics, and they use that power to bamboozle the nations of the world into spending billions of dollars on countermeasures, especially drugs and vaccines, that didn't work very well. In that sense, the WHO is really just another wealth transfer instrument. The WHO's big pharma collaborators make billions on the taxpayer's dime, while the people of the world are left to suffer the consequences of fast-tracked vaccines. Its handling of the COVID pandemic in particular has been unprecedentedly bad, as they were behind the withholding of early treatment with safe medicines worldwide. As noted by, see, this is where it gets tricky. I may not be able to put this on YouTube. As noted by ivermectin advocate Dr. Tess Lawyer, the WHO has also claimed the mRNA shots as safe as conventional vaccines, which is nowhere near the truth. Most all available data prove that they are the most dangerous drugs ever created. Why would anyone expect the WHO to become less corrupt if given even more power and control? Now, the IHR overrode and suspended the U.S. Constitution from the start, but in January, the U.S. also submitted regulatory amendments that will give the WHO even more power to restrict your rights and freedoms. May 22nd through the 28th, the World Health Assembly will gather and vote on these amendments to the IHR, and, if passed, they will be enacted into international law. These submitted amendments are in addition to the WHO pandemic treaty currently under discussion, as reported by Health Policy Watch February 23rd. Washington wants to fast-track a series of nitty-gritty but far-reaching changes in the existing international health regulations that govern WHO and member state emergency alert and response for consideration at this year's World Health Assembly. The U.S. proposal for major IHR rule changes obtained by Health Policy Watch, has been a topic of discussion in a series of closed-door meetings of WHO member states, which are considering ways to reform the existing IHR, as well as advancing a whole new WHO convention or other international instrument on pandemic prevention and response. The U.S. is expected to lead a parallel track of tightly paced, informal member state negotiations to reach consensus on an IHR reform resolution for approval at this year's 75th WHA. The new WHO convention or other international instrument mentioned here refers to the WHO treaty currently under discussion. An intergovernmental negotiating body, or INB, was established as a subdivision of the World Health Assembly in December 2021 for the purpose of drafting and negotiating this new pandemic treaty, and as mentioned, this INB has begun that work. However, as noted by Corbett, this is only the second time in the WHO's history that an INB has been established. The first one was the INB of the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control 22 years ago. So this is not a well-established process, and it's hard to predict how it will play out. Another clue about what the WHO intends to do with more power comes from its primary funder, Bill Gates. Gates recently announced he's building a pandemic response team for the WHO, which he would like to be called the Global Epidemic Response and Mobilization, or GERM team. This team will be made up of thousands of disease experts under WHO's purview and will monitor nations and decide when they need to suspend civil liberties, force populations to wear masks, and close borders, the Countersignal reports. Of course, Gates is also the largest funder of the WHO, when you combine the donations from both his foundation and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. This and other relationships speak volumes about the corruption still ruling the WHO. At the end of the day, Gates is basically paying the WHO to dictate to the world what they must do to make Gates a ton of money, as noted by the Countersignal. Gates' announcement of the GERM team coincides with the WHO's drafting of a global pandemic treaty. In the future, the pandemic treaty will not only ensure that member states abide by international health regulations, but will also put the WHO in the driver's seat, so to speak. Member states, including the U.S. and Canada, will take their orders directly from the organization. As conservative MP Leslyn Lewis explains, the treaty includes 190 countries and would be legally binding. The treaty defines and classifies what is considered a pandemic, and this could consist of broad classifications, including an increase in cancers, heart conditions, strokes, etc. If a pandemic is declared, the WHO takes over the global health management of the pandemic. Of even more concern, if this treaty is enshrined, the WHO would be in full control over what gets called a pandemic. They could dictate how our doctors can respond, which drugs can and can't be used, or which vaccines are approved. We would end up with a one-size-fits-all approach for the entire world. A one-size-fits-all response to a health crisis doesn't even work across Canada, let alone the entire globe. It isn't unreasonable to assume that the GERM team, as a new branch of the WHO, would oversee making sure member states comply with the pandemic treaty after the draft is finalized and member states sign on. The next question, then, is how the WHO and Bill Gates would be able to monitor every individual in every country to determine whether enough people are sick to justify locking a region down. To this end, the WHO has contracted German-based Dutch telecom subsidiary T-Systems to develop a global vaccine passport system with plans to link every person on the planet to a QR code digital ID. Thus, there will be one pandemic treaty, one germ team, one global vaccine passport, and one World Health Organization to monitor every person on the planet. Indeed, while countries around the world have scrubbed their COVID measures and backed away from vaccine passports, the WHO is still moving ahead with the global vaccine passport program. So if the WHO is given the authority to dictate biosecurity rules for the world, you can bet they'll insist on vaccine passports with built-in digital identity and readiness for a centralized programmable central bank digital currency. As reported by the Western Standard, the WHO fully intends to provide support to its 194 member states to facilitate the implementation of the digital verification technology for countries' national and regional verification and vaccine status. Countries will therefore only emerge from the pandemic together. COVID-19 affects everyone. Vaccination certificates that are tamper-proof and digitally verifiable build trust. WHO is therefore supporting member states in building national and regional trust networks and verification technology. The WHO's Gateway service also serves as a bridge between regional systems. It can also be used as part of future vaccination campaigns and home-based records, said Garrett Mall, unit head of the WHO's Department of Digital Health and Innovation, on Dutch Telecom's website. The question now is, can we stop this? Can we stop this international pandemic instrument that the WHO is seeking? With short notice, the WHO announced it would accept public comment on the treaty for a total of 5 days. The World Council for Health was among the few that acted quickly enough to submit a comment in opposition to the treaty. Laurie delivered the World Council for Health's submission. In an April 26 update on Substack, Laurie wrote, "Despite the lack of notice, many grassroots organizations did what they could to spread the word of the World Council for Health's Stop the Treaty campaign reached an astonishing 415 million people. Many of you made written submissions expressing your concerns, so many of you, in fact, that I hear the WHO's website crashed on that last day. One person who missed the deadline was Professor Robert Clancy, a leading clinical immunologist in Canada. He sent the comment he would have wanted to submit to Laurie, who included it in her post. The proposal to take control of pandemics at a central WHO level is untenable and threatens a global society. I am in receipt of the World Council for Health response and the superbly summarized view by Dr. Tess Lawrie. These concerns reflect the across-the-board view of most Australian doctors. The failure to understand the restrictions of systemic vaccination for mucosal infection and the dangers of accumulated suppression that follows mindless booster programs, and failure to integrate the massive databases regarding adverse events of genetic vaccines are but two of the serious mistakes perpetuated by the WHO. It is foolhardy to even suggest that a one-size-fits-all response to a pandemic crisis across geographic zones characterized by hugely different parameters could possibly be covered by a central bureaucratic process. The need for local decision-making is of prime importance. The rule of science and the rule of the doctor-patient relationship must determine any response to a pandemic, and current experience where the role of the narrative has so distorted disease outcomes, supported by the WHO, must make very clear the foolishness of rewarding incompetence and corruption with even greater powers. I write this as the most experienced clinical immunologist in Australia and a leading research scientist in mucosal immunology with a focus on host-parasite relationship. Professor Robert Clancy. While many, like Clancy, didn't get a chance to participate, the WHO has announced it will allow for 2 more days of public comment, June 16th and 17th, as noted by Laurie. Please also be aware of the proposed amendments to the international health regulations to be voted on this May at the World Health Assembly. Like the pandemic treaty, this is another move to seize greater powers and override the sovereign laws of individual nations. Some say this is more significant than the pandemic treaty. If voted in, it means the loss of our sovereignty from this November. James Roguski has written extensively about this on his Substack. There seems to be concerted effort by the WHO and its controllers to attack our sovereignty from all angles. It is important we make it clear that we do not recognize the WHO as an authority over us and that we will not tolerate this abuse of power. We are sovereign and will not be bound by the undertakings of corrupt officials who pretend to act on our behalf when signing away the inherent rights of the world's people. They do not act for us, and we will not be bound. I encourage you to make plans to have your voice heard June 16th and 17th. Unfortunately, the WHO has not yet released any submission details. Your best bet right now is to sign up for the World Council for Health newsletter. The last time they issued links and instructions on how to submit your comment and are sure to do the same for June submission window. To block the IHR amendments at the May 2022 World Health Assembly, we need to flood our respective delegations with opposition. A list of U.S. delegates can be found in Roguski's Substack article, Speaking Truth to Power. For contact information for other nations' delegates, I would suggest contacting the regional office and asking for a list. It is also possible that the World Council for Health will publish guidance on it, so be sure to sign up for their newsletter. So, I will find that Substack link for Speaking Truth to Power. I will list that in the description box. But I wanted to cover this last because it was the most important. Also, it was really long to read, but I think it was absolutely important to read that and let people know, so that way on June 16th and 17th, more people can submit what they want to say. My thing is, we are not bound to the WHO. We are not bound to the CDC. We are not bound to NATO. We are a sovereign nation, and we do not have to comply with these ridiculous alphabet agencies that think that they rule over everybody. And I've said it before, we should just abolish all alphabet agencies. That would include the FBI, the CIA, the FDA, all of them, because they're all incompetent and corrupt. Just start all over. But this is serious, because this is where they're going for the whole, global economy, global health, global currency, and Bill Gates. Anytime Bill Gates is behind anything, it's always evil. There's evil lurking behind everything that Bill Gates tries to push. He is an evil guy. He is dangerous. And I don't think that anybody should trust anything that he does. Sadly, a lot of people do. And then you have our politicians on the left that like to push and, send out propaganda that uplifts Bill Gates as some, philanthropist and humanitarian. No, he's just a guy that likes to make money, and he'll hurt and kill people in the process, and he doesn't think twice about that happening as long as he makes his billions, right? And it's also a form of population control. Always, always about population control. Because for whatever reason, they think that we are too overpopulated in the earth, which really, I think Mr. Reagan did a really good video, I think it was. Yes, I think it was Mr. Reagan. And talked about how we don't even come close to overpopulating the world. We could have so many more people and we would still be fine. So you should go check out that video. Anyway, check this out. I will link all the descriptions I will put all of the links in the description box. I don't know if I'm going to put this up on YouTube, because if I do, I'm going to cut a lot of this out, because talking about COVID and all that, you just really can't do that on YouTube anymore. But I might have to wait until one of my strikes is up and that I only have one active community strike, and then I can go put it up on YouTube, the full thing. And then if it gets taken down, then I don't have 3 active strikes at one time where I lose my channel. So check it out. Seriously. The Substack for Rogowski. What was his name? James Rogowski. And Speaking Truth to Power is what you need to check out for the list of U.S. delegates to get in contact with. Anyway, I'm going to leave the episode here. I got to go get ready for church. Hope y'all have a good rest of your day. Don't forget to go to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel. Leave me comments, because that's really good. And like and share my videos. And then you can also go check me out on Rumble. If it's not on YouTube, then it will be on Rumble. So check out both places and subscribe to both. And then my link tree is always in the description, so you can get to all of my social media accounts and follow me there. And I hope you have a good rest of your day, and God bless.